Great.
Right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Purpose Driven Business Summit. Really glad you're here. Those of you that are live on a Friday afternoon, appreciate you being here. And those of you that are listening to the recording later, welcome to you as well. So you're going to have get some very interesting insights this afternoon from April Archer with SaraBella Fishing. They have a great story, and I know you're going to appreciate hearing from her. But before we dive into that, let me give you my usual reminders. One is all of the recordings, including this one, will be posted on the YouTube playlist with my channel. And you have to use the link I'm sending out to access the videos. If you just go and search for them on your own via my name, then you actually can't get into it. You have to go in through the URL that I'm sending out. So that's just a reminder. And also want to point out, we do have the private Facebook group set up for the summit, which is a place where attendees and speakers, if they choose, can engage with each other. We can't do the networking at the coffee pot that we usually would in the days of Zoom. But the good news is because we can do Zoom, we have people from 10 countries attending the summit, which is just amazing. So if you would like to share your ahas, ask questions, just engage, find out what other people are up to, that's what the Facebook group is for. When you go to Facebook and groups, it's called Purpose Summit. You have to request to be let in, and one of my team will do that. So that's a great way to have some conversations with people that are also interested in doing good through business. So enough of that. Now we get to talk with April. So welcome, April. Thank you very much for being willing to share about SaraBella Fishing here at the Purpose Driven Business Summit.
Thank you, Sue. Glad to be here.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
You know, like this is the first time I'm meeting you, so I'm looking forward to learning more about your company. Like I've looked at your website and read some things, but you know, it's going to be great to hear in your own words what you're up to. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in charge of fishing rod company.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Sue. I'm glad to be here, and I really love the mission behind what you're doing. I really do believe that businesses can make a positive impact in the world, and it's an excellent way to make this world a better place. So thank you. Let's see. I'm a Colorado girl, still here in Colorado, and I was fortunate to be raised in a family that valued the outdoors and outdoor adventure. I learned how to fish with my dad and my brother when I was a kid, and we camped and did sports. And as a girl, I had lots of great opportunities as a result of those things. So I developed a love of the outdoors and a love of water from a really young age. I put the water backdrop behind me just so that you all can see the ocean here. And then I continued through my adolescence and adulthood with a passion for learning about international relations, working with multicultural nonprofits and people, and really caring deeply about human rights. I give a lot of credit to one of my high school teachers that he was a history teacher, and he always said, if there's something that you don't like in the world, you can either get involved or be quiet. And I think he really encouraged students to write letters, to petition, to go to peaceful protests, to really care about what was going on in the world. So even I went to my first peaceful protest when I was 14 years old. So I think at a young age, I've really connected with people and care deeply about humanity, recognizing that a Colorado girl who has many privileges in front of her almost has a responsibility to get involved and do what I can to make the world better a little bit. So that was kind of in my hardwiring, I think, as a young kid. I went on to college and studied international relations, Spanish and did graduate program in international relations with economics and human rights as my focus. Even in that program, I got to take the business classes as well as the human rights classes. So that carried with me through education. As part of those experiences, I recognized while working in the international tax department that businesses have a lot of power in this world, a lot of opportunity in this world, and there are businesses that have in their daily mantra and in their mission and vision how to use that and how to use it in a positive way, and there are businesses that unfortunately don't. So while I was working in this international tax department, I recognized that some businesses can actually strategically plan their financials and their impact work and still make products and still consult or sell or do what they do in a business setting. So I started to see an intersection of human rights and business there. After that, I worked at the University of Denver, directed health and wellness for undergraduates. That was a big shift professionally. It was teaching breathing and meditation. It was physical and mental wellness. It was spirituality, ethics, and things along those lines. So then my scope of wellness and, you know, human rights and activism became connected back to the outdoors again. So you kind of see this circle that was beginning to happen of businesses have power, human rights matter, and the outdoors really can heal and help people. So past that, I started a photography company, had 3 children, life was busy, and this water connection continued with me through all of this. I still continue to love the outdoors, to fish, to hike, to play, and that was really my respite, my therapy. With that, I began to see a need in fly fishing, that there were lots of underserved groups in this sport. It was predominantly white male participants, and there was a growing interest among female anglers and more diverse anglers, which was great. So I saw at that point an opportunity to begin making fly fishing rods that could be accessible to more people and an experience that is hopefully welcoming to anglers around the world from various walks of life that can participate in the outdoors and all of that. So that's kind of what got us up to SaraBella. And when we first launched, I'm the majority owner. My husband is an owner, and then we have a business partner, Scott Grable. The 3 of us really were determined from the beginning that we could make great products and do good. So that was how we decided to launch the company. We've been in business about 6 years since, and still committing to those things. That was the nutshell summary of where we are.
Great. And of all things you could do, why fly fishing rods?
Yeah, I mean, fly fishing it's so much fun. It's a beautiful way to connect with the outdoors. I think it offers a unique experience in that it can be thrilling. It can be adventure seeking. You can have the adrenaline, heart racing moments. It can also be very peaceful and very calming and a great way to connect with water. So if you're literally standing next to or in water or sitting next to water or on a boat, it's pretty powerful. And fly fishing has a long, beautiful history. And I think where it is right now is exciting in a different space, but it's a fun sport. And I like to say all the time that the fish don't judge the angler. They might judge the fly or the presentation or things like that, but you know, they're very non-discriminatory as far as humans go. And I think it's a great way to experience the outdoors.
Absolutely. I know I have a couple of friends that are completely addicted to fly fishing.
Yep.
And, you know, they just love being out there. It's meditative for them, you know, doing it. And they're not really about eating the fish that they catch. They put them back. So like I can see the link with what you were doing with health and wellness, you know,
Mhm.
because it can be that, in addition to what you were just saying about the adrenaline pumping part.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, and fly fishing is something that personally has allowed me to be outside, to spend time with my family and friends, to explore the world. I used to play intense, high impact competitive sports, and for me, it's a way to stay active and still, whether it's competing or just setting goals and strategies, and still have that in my life without some of the high impact that I once did.
yeah, save the body, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So you handcraft all your rods, am I right on that?
We do. Yep. So there's lots of parts to that process, but yes, each one is a one of a kind, really a unique piece.
Well, so tell us, so did you already know how to do that, to how to make rods before you started the company? Or is that something you had to figure out after you decided we're doing this?
Yeah, we had to learn. We had done a few more on a kind of a hobby basis. Um, but once we recognized an opportunity and a potential and a need, for more options in the market, we had to learn. There was a steep and difficult learning curve that first
I would think,
year or so.
yeah. And you must have to have specialized equipment and all of that.
Yes, and I think when people, if people have been in manufacturing or innovation or supply chain processes, sometimes they can say, yeah, you figure it out. And people who haven't done that, if they've worked in other fields or don't necessarily have that background, it sounds overwhelming and, maybe even crazy. So for us, and I give a lot of credit to my dad, he's engineer, and I think taught me even from a young age. I didn't become an engineer, my brother's an engineer. This tinkering, this problem solving, this, don't the answer isn't no until you've eliminated all other possibilities. So kind of that desire to figure something out. And same with Scott and JT, my business partners, are also, I think, kind of hardwired that way of why not. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs, explaining the point where SaraBella really started to launch was when we had a recognition that if we didn't do this, we may regret it for the rest of our lives. And so that fuel helps to get you through all of those obstacles and learning curves and all of that stuff that you face when you're trying to create something, especially a physical product.
Sure. So you decided to focus on rods for women specifically. So what was part of the thinking there?
Sort of. I think we get asked that a lot. Like, do we only make rods for women? No, we make rods for everyone, for all anglers.
Okay.
Like I said, the fish don't discriminate against gender or ethnicity or anything, and neither do we. So we welcome everyone. I think what makes it unique is that we are the world's only woman-owned Western fly rod manufacturer. So when you see our brand and our stories, me and a lot of women who also want to be part of this. That said, we've said we make grips and rods that appeal to women. There are lots of choices in the design, in the grips, in
Yeah.
the shopping experience. But we've never said we, make rods especially, specifically. We've never, said that. Intentionally, we recognize we want to bring more women in. We want it to be a positive, welcoming experience. That said, everyone is welcome here.
No, in a minute, we'll, after we do a little more talking, we'll flip over to your website and you can have me click around and you can show, because they're gorgeous. They're really, it's like, wow, I didn't know fly fishing rods could look that good. But I don't know anything about the sport. So, I was like, wow, this is amazing that you're doing this. They're great.
Yeah, and we want them, we use bold colors. We have lots of aesthetic choices. As a girl, I always hated the notion of shrink it and pink it in the sporting world. I always wanted things that were performance oriented and high quality, and stood on their own from a technical perspective. Yes, they can have some really beautiful elements, but that performance, that smart piece, as we call it, has to come first.
So roughly how long does it take to make one rod?
From start to finish, if a customer orders a semi-custom rod, it takes us about 5 to 6 weeks. The total time, like there's a lot of start and stop. There's paint drying and epoxy curing and transfer of, pieces and things like that. So the total time is not 6 weeks of consistent hours. But from start to finish, that's about how long it takes us to build a.
Wow. So there's no like last minute orders, we need it tomorrow, like not in the semi-custom zone.
Not in that zone. Yeah, we have ready to fish rods that can ship immediately. So that's always changing. We try to have some that in case we do get those phone calls or those, situations where we have options. And then we have ones that are in progress and maybe never hit the website. So a lot of people are calling or reaching out and saying, what do you have that's in progress that I don't want to wait 6 weeks, but maybe I can still put a custom decal on it or pick some of the things to try to meet the needs of people that need them sooner than.
So when you first started, were you and your husband the ones making most of the rods, or did you have other people helping you out? It's like, what was the progression there, and where are you today with that? Who actually makes them?
Yep. So when we first started, it really was me, JT, and Scott. That was it, and it was, that we were all learning. JT and Scott both have had other day jobs, and I've been full-time with SaraBella for about 6 years. We learned pretty quickly that we would need more people and we would need more expertise, even then, we were still learning. So in that first year, we connected with an organization called Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing. It's a national nonprofit that teaches veterans to fly fish, build rods, and tie flies. So in Denver, they have a rod building program. We connected with them, and the gentleman who ran that program, named Jim, took us under his wing, really, and really liked what we were doing. He had lost a daughter to cancer, and she was an avid fly fisher, and I think he connected with me and wanted to be part of it. So we hired Jim as our first contract rod builder as a veteran. And he shared a lot of his knowledge and insight and wisdom with us. And yeah, he worked up until he passed away. He passed away a couple years ago, and completed his last rod about 2 months before he passed. So he was really integral in sharing his wisdom with us. And since then, we've committed to hiring additional veterans through the program at Project Healing Waters.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. And you also have some survivors that you hire as well. So tell us about that.
We do. Yeah. When we first started, we simply said, we've hired veterans. And then we met a gentleman who was referred to us named David McElwain. He's a master fly tyer, an author. He's been a long-time fly fishing professional. And he had just finished his treatment for male breast cancer. So he has this long history in fly fishing. He had a double mastectomy, was enduring all the chemo and whatnot for that, and couldn't return to his other job. So he was looking for something. He had some neuropathy in his hands. I met with him, and he was interested in learning. He had never wrapped a fly rod before. And we just had a great connection. So we hit it off right away with David and have been part of his kind of recovery journey. And since he's been able to use his hands more and more, he's done quite well with his neuropathy and some of his other post-cancer challenges. So yeah, he's been with us over 5 years. And when we hired David, he wasn't a US veteran, but he'd been through some stuff. So we expanded the term to survivors, really to recognize people who've faced life's challenges, that want to work with their hands, want to be part of a team. And
and it sounds like you are offering employment to folks that maybe sometimes whatever they were doing before, the traditional job market, hasn't been as much of an option. So you provide an opportunity for them.
We're trying. I think in Colorado and in other places, there are a large number of people who are either unemployed or underemployed that may have VA or veteran benefits. They may have disability benefits. They may have another job, but it may not be helping them make ends meet or allowing them to fulfill their personal desire to work. So yeah, I think offering contracts, part-time work to individuals that are looking to contribute and have talents, willing to be trained, it's worked really well for us. And I think there's a huge potential in today's job market for other businesses to hire in this way.
Well, I know Tom Dawkins, who was one of the first speakers during the summit, talks about, one way that social enterprises and purpose-driven businesses can give back is by, it's kind of, he calls it an embedded model, where sometimes it's who you hire and how you treat them and the training you give and the benefits and the wage, like all of that is, sometimes people just think about the give back, like cutting
Right.
or sharing products with a nonprofit, but there's other ways to actually be a purpose-driven business, and you're actually doing some of those. So that's great.
It has its challenges sometimes, but what we find is that we really connect with these individuals and we become much closer as a result. They really do excellent work because they care deeply about the team and the impact that they're making. So I think it's a two-way street, and yeah, it's worked really well for us, and it's a very rewarding way to have a team. It is interesting in today's COVID world, the number of people who are working from home or figuring out how to have a dispersed team, and SaraBella has done it since the very beginning. And for years, people were fascinated, like, what do you mean you don't all work in the same place? How can you do that? How can you stay connected to each other and be on time with your orders? Things like that. And we've done it for reasons to allow our team to work from home in the flexibility of their own environment. For some individuals, that means if they can't sleep at night for whatever reason, they can work. And if they work at night, maybe they fish in the next day. So they can have a lot of freedom and flexibility in how they do their work, which they love.
Absolutely. That's
for us, it means we didn't have a huge overhead or the huge costs of maintaining, a big production space. So it's allowed us as a small business to be nimble financially, to make conservative choices that in today's world and all the challenges small businesses are facing right now, I think it's helped us to get here and just to stay here. So yeah, our team's been able to work through the entire pandemic. March and April were tough from a revenue perspective, but our team has not missed a beat from a work perspective. So we're really thankful for that.
Absolutely. And that was already your model. You didn't have to pivot to try to figure out how to keep people employed and to get product. Like,
Right.
you are at working. So, I think that's an interesting model that other folks that may be listening into this might want to think about is how do you do it in a bit different way? Like, I love the flexibility that's built in, and people do what you ask them to do, but they have flexibility of when they do it. So I'm curious, how much actual equipment does it take to make one of these? And does one person make the whole thing, or people specialize in different parts of the process? Like, how does that work actually?
Should I try to show you a rod and see if you're able to see it here? So let's see, can you sort of see?
You know, it blanks out if it
Okay.
in front of your body, because there you go.
That better? Okay. Okay, we'll try this. And if I need to remove the ocean, I can. So this blue part is what we call the rod blank. For us, it's made from carbon fiber graphite. That is produced for SaraBella in North America to our specifications.
Kind of going in and out, so
Okay.
we love the water, but it might be better
I
to.
can try to just put my wall on here.
Okay.
If
Yeah,
you
because
don't mind me messing around with
the parts of your rod, and
okay.
they're flickering in and out a little bit.
Let me go to my settings and just do the background. Okay.
There you go. There.
Okay.
See it? Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so the blue part is the carbon fiber graphite. It's made in North America by a company for us. And then it's painted with automotive grade paint.
Okay.
And it has to be, I say automotive grade because it can bend and flex similar to like your bumper paint on a car. The cork, tell me if you want to stop. The cork comes to us from Portugal, so you can see the individual cork rings. They come as natural raw cork, and then we glue them together and then lathe them here in Lafayette, Colorado. This one has a shiny coat on it. It's an option for customers. So that is all done here in Lafayette, Colorado on a lathe, so basic equipment here. This is what's called the reel seat. So the reel attaches here when you're fishing. We use repurposed Colorado hardwoods. So Denver trees that have died come to a local lumber yard. We can obtain them there and then turn them into reel seats. So that's kind of one of the environmental aspects that we like to share with people. This particular rod has some acrylic inlay just to jazz it up. That's also done here in Lafayette, Colorado. The threads that are on the rod, so this looks like paint almost, but it's individually wrapped threads that go round and around hundreds of times. When you look at the full rod or another piece, this is another section. So these threads are all done by hand. And that's the part of the process that's done by our veteran and survivor team from home. It's very tedious. It challenges your brain to focus. And it's really a work of art. So they do a great job with that. On some fishing poles or fly rods, if it's a black rod, it might have black thread and you don't really notice it. But the purpose of that thread is to attach all of the hardware on the rod. And then speaking of the hardware, all of these metal pieces are all made in the US. So it's really important to us that nothing on this rod comes from China. It's all sourced and made domestically, if not locally. The only exception is that cork has to come from Portugal. So that's kind of the quick summary of oh, and then once it's wrapped, then we hand apply a decal. And then epoxy. So the epoxy is a hand brushed process that takes 3 coats in a couple days.
Well, it's so different parts of the production process happen in different places. It sounds like. Yeah. So
yeah, our headquarters are in Erie. Our production space is in Lafayette, and then our team members, the veteran and survivor teams, reside from up in northern metro area all the way down to Woodland Park. We have a veteran who lives in Woodland Park. and he helps with our South Metro driving, transport, and whatnot. So yeah, kind of a dispersed team.
Yeah. So do you sell only through your website, or do you have other sales channels that you also use?
Um, when we launched SaraBella, it was really a direct to consumer website sales process.
Yep.
Since launching, we've partnered with several retail shops, some in Colorado. We have one, Fishy Wares in Anchorage, Alaska, and several ranches and, some co-branded partners throughout the country. And then we've done events. This year, trade shows, of course, are a little different, but we have done quite a bit through consumer and, B2B shows at convention centers and whatnot. So,
Well, it sounds like, especially with COVID-19, it's great that you've had kind of a variety of ways to get product out to consumers. So you're not
absolutely.
water. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to just show, since we're doing show and tell here, the other aspects that I think in a manufacturing process are important to consider. So we talk about doing good, we build a fly rod, and then we also have considered the packaging. So our fly rods all come in a hand cut and sewn rod sleeve. We partner with a local nonprofit and their lead cut and sew woman to design and make these here in Denver and Aurora, Colorado. And then our tubes are, the tube the rod comes in is made in Loveland. So I think businesses can look at so many different ranges of how they give back and how they make different impacts. For us, the start to finish, tip to toe product story has been really important for us.
Well, absolutely. And using other local groups kind of as your vendors to get things that you need, that's just win-win-win all the way around.
Yep. And there are a lot of great sources here in Colorado. I know people are watching this from all around the world, but there are people and nonprofits and resources probably in your area or your region or your country that may offer some really strong partnerships.
So how did you find some, you just like word of mouth, or like these days, Google, you can find out anything. So then you like looked and found, okay, who like cuts and sews things, and then had people, like, what's that process look like? And what guidance would you give to somebody that's thinking of following your example here? Like, what do they need to make sure they keep their eye on?
I think for us early on, there were some pieces of the process we considered doing in-house. So we considered hiring someone and having them learn how to cut and sew and have them be internal. That doesn't always make sense. Maybe it's not a full-time job or something that you want under your roof. So with cut and sew, we reached out to a couple folks in the manufacturing world. It was another colleague in Denver that was pretty dialed in with local nonprofits who referred us to the Mile High Workshop. So I think it's all about asking questions. You can Google some things, but I think developing a strong network of colleagues and professionals and asking, I think you get a lot of no's or I don't know, but I'll introduce you to so-and-so and she might know or he might know or whatever. And then keep going, keep working. So I think that's kind of how we've done it. And we've tried to start hyper local and then expand if necessary. So if we couldn't find it right in our backyard, we'll go farther. But in our metropolitan area, there's a tremendous amount of good stuff happening. So
yeah, that's great.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Like you say, people know people know people. So eventually you'll find what you're looking for.
And don't apologize for your minimums. When we first started, we didn't need 400 rod sleeves. We needed 5 or 10, so recognizing this is a learning process and a growth process, and finding the right people that want to grow with you through that was also key for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little about the give back piece to what you do. In addition to kind of having built it into who you source things from, who you use as employees to help make the product, you also do other things. So tell us about that.
Yeah, there's even more, right? At the end of the day, we really want every fly rod to make an impact in that whole story, so that when people do go fish, they know that they're part of, you know, something really positive in our community. The nonprofit partners are sometimes changing. Right now, we have an amazing roster of organizations that we work with. And every nonprofit partnership is unique. We don't have a one-size-fits-all policy of we always give this much for every rod sold, or we always go to this, you know, it's really customized based on that nonprofit and on what a good mutual fit is for both of us. All of these have really developed organically, where we weren't necessarily pursuing a nonprofit and they didn't necessarily, you know, hunt us down and say, we want your money or give back or things like that. It was really, you start crossing paths with people at events, you start recognizing, I like their program, let's have a phone call, let's talk about how we can help each other, figuring out what their needs are, where we can contribute, and developing truly a partnership is, I think, the best approach there. So the ones we have now, if anyone's on our website, you can see them. We have Casting for Recovery, which supports breast cancer individuals and survivors connecting through fly fishing. We have Forever Our Rivers, which offers grants to nonprofits to bring people to water and outdoor adventures. We have the Mayfly Project, which teaches foster children how to fly fish, tie flies, and get outside. We have Project Healing Waters, which I mentioned earlier, teaches veterans how to fly fish, build rods, and tie flies. And then we have Trout Unlimited as a conservation partner to work on fisheries so that we can continue to fish. That was a quick rattle off. And then Mile High Workshop I talked about before has directly and indirectly, depending on the time period, contributed to our cut and sew efforts.
Well, and it's one of the things I liked is you were giving us the list of what nonprofits you partner with. They all link in some way with what your basic core mission is. It's, you know, because there's so many, like here in Colorado, you know, they say there's 25,000 nonprofits. And of course, everybody would want support from a business. Right. But so you've been, it sounds like, very careful to pick organizations that are kind of doing something in your industry.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it goes back to what I said a little bit earlier about my very personal belief that water can heal, and you can bring people to water, whether it's running through the sprinklers or jumping in a lake or catching a fish on a fly rod. Water has amazing healing powers. So all of these organizations have a connection to water, and that's really what brings us together with that. And they all operate in very different ways. From young individuals through life process, kind of trying to span the various ages and stages of what fly fishing can be.
Oh, that's great. So when you're looking, are there specific things you're looking for? Like you mentioned, the relationship and sort of like personal resonance with what they're doing, what kind of programming they have, like any tips that you would have for other companies that are thinking about how do we pick some nonprofit partners? Any lessons learned, like anything you can share?
Yeah, I think that I mentioned it can be, for us, it's been mostly organic. So you see the faces at events, you hear the stories, you volunteer. It's a great way to learn about an organization is to volunteer at their programming. And then you see how it's run, you see a little bit about, you kind of look behind the curtain a little bit and can get a sense of what's going on, if you have the capacity to do that. Right. We have an application process, so we get a lot of asks for donations like most businesses do. We can't say yes to everything, but we often say somehow we can find a creative way to contribute. But the ones that really want to partner are the ones where there's a mutual support. So they're not just asking for, your money or a link to a website. They're really wanting you to help with their marketing efforts, or to volunteer, or to participate at their programming, or contribute to their whatever is going on, if they want help with their marketing materials or other things. It's really a mutual partnership that I think is the strength there. It's one thing to ask for a donation, another thing to want to grow together. So the ones that I listed previously were the ones that I view as true partnerships. We have lots of other organizations that kind of come and go, that we ally with and we partner with in different ways, but as far as a consistent partnership, it's important to go through that vetting process, or that that have those honest conversations to see that you're a good fit for each other.
I love your idea of no better way than to go like volunteer for something and get a sense of like, how do they show up? How do they treat volunteers? Like, how do their staff operate? That is really looking behind the curtain.
Yeah, and it's okay to volunteer, and it's okay to encourage your team to volunteer. And that doesn't have to be a partnership. It can simply be a participation. Yeah.
When you partner with these organizations, the ones that are more I don't want to call them your A team, but
right.
that you have more consistent ongoing relationships with, are there specific things you expect from them to do, like to support what you're up to? Like, do you ask for, like, what's the win that you're kind of hoping for from that side?
Right. I'll just share an example of the Mayfly project as one of our partners, and give them a lot of credit. They teach foster kids how to fly fish, and foster kids often don't have access to this sport or to outdoor adventures. And so connecting them with mentors and the science and the thrill of catching fish is really something that they can take with them through their journey. So the Mayfly project in particular not only does excellent work on a day-to-day basis, they include their nonprofit partners in content for writing their publications. They do social media posts. They pick up the phone and call and say, they've called me several times in the last few months, said, how's SaraBella doing? We don't expect money from you. We don't expect much from you. We want you to make it. We want you to be successful. And then, I think having that proactive phone call from a nonprofit to their business partners is really important. They've also said, hey, we have this promotion coming up, and sometimes there's an ask, and sometimes it's, you've already donated, and would it be okay if we include your logo or your story? And, are we doing this video work, and we want SaraBella to be listed as one of the providing sponsors. So I think sometimes there's an ask, and sometimes there's a check-in or a thank you, or just an honest conversation is important too.
Absolutely. And if there are any nonprofit folks listening, I hope they note of what you were just saying, because I think that's a way to really have a partnership be strong and be sustainable. It's like you actually have to care about each other's organizations, and checking in without asking for anything is a great way to do that. And I think a lot of nonprofits forget kind of almost customer relations. Like
it is, yeah. And it means a lot. And I think especially in these times, but I think always, and I go back to the whole title of this program is, around businesses doing good. And the more successful businesses are, in my opinion, the more good they can do. If a business has to close its doors and shut down, they can't do a whole heck of a lot. So I think recognizing that the more successful businesses are, they can keep giving back. And in the instance with Mayfly, after I got off my most recent phone call with them, it was, gosh, they're wonderful. I am so glad to be able to be part of what they do. So that feeling of value is really important.
So you started a business and built in, you know, the notion that you wanted to do good through, I mean, you're making a product, but then the product itself has the potential to do good, and how you're making it is doing good. How you engage with nonprofit partners is doing good. So what kind of challenges did you experience trying to get a more purpose-driven business off the ground that you think could be useful? And do you have any tips for folks that are looking to, especially build like a real product like you have? It's not a service. So yeah, what kind of guidance would you give folks?
I mean, there are tons of challenges. I think getting through those challenges and not giving up, it's easy to sometimes have the wind taken out of your sail and say, is this all worth it? You know, there will be criticism, there will be challenges, there will be all of that, regardless of what you do and how you do it. But really coming back to your core of what you stand for, maybe what you don't stand for, and keep on. I mean, keep focusing on those positive aspects and the benefits there. I mean, the challenges are, you know, I don't know, they're countless. There are many, from production challenges to staffing challenges to consumer challenges, all of it. But I think what continues to drive SaraBella forward is coming back to the purpose. And at the end of the day, building a product that connects people to water and doing everything we can, albeit not perfect. We're always learning on how we can do better, but how we can make an impact at the end of the day.
Well, that's great that you've really woven that in, and you know, all your decisions, it sounds like at the moment, are to make the best choice possible to be able to actually ensure that that mission lives on as you're growing the company. So what's next for SaraBella? Like, what are you hoping to do, like post-COVID?
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. I keep hearing the words of normal and post-COVID. I don't really know if there will be I don't think normal as we ever knew it will be. And COVID will probably be with us in some way, somehow, for maybe forever, but hopefully we resume, you know, I know what you're getting at, a better sense of stability in our society, and less unrest and more sense of we've got this, and we can tackle the science. So for SaraBella, I think the good news is people can get outdoors, and the outdoor adventure world is becoming more popular. It's becoming more therapeutic for people. I think they're recognizing that it's essential for you know, for survival, for mental health, for physical health, things like that. So I think the good news is more people are fishing, and finding fishing as one catalyst for health and well-being. For SaraBella, we hope to keep growing our production. We hope to keep getting fly rods in the hands of more anglers. We hope to bring more diversity and inclusion to the sport. We have a lot of work to do on that topic. We're making progress, but it's still far from where it should be. We believe that fly fishing can be for anyone and everyone. So lots of work to be done there. We'd love to have more of a global, international experience, having rods in more places around the world, and keep hiring the veterans and survivors. So the more we expand our production and our operations, the more we can keep hiring the amazing individuals that we have and do that work.
That's
we
great.
Still have big hopes and dreams, even though it's a crazy time.
But like we were talking about earlier, you've got multiple sales channels. You've got a really cool product. And yeah, so hopefully it's just
people keep fishing.
So you're part of Good Business Colorado. So tell us a little bit about what that organization is, because I think if people aren't in Colorado, there are organizations like that cropping up all over the place. Also, That's why we've had such interest in this summit. But what do you see as So tell us about Good Business Colorado, and what do you see as the trends with businesses that want to do good through their company, not just as a, okay, we're going to write a check once we're done.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us about those things.
Sure. SaraBella's been a member of Good Business Colorado for maybe a year or so. So I don't have a ton of experience, but I can at least speak to our experience in the last year. It's a local organization. I believe it's a 501c6, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong there, that can do lobbying and legislative work. So it has a set of members that can be part of this network of businesses that are committed to environmental impact, human impact, social impact, things like that, throughout Colorado. So that's what I understand as the organization and the membership. The events that I've attended have been great. Last year I got to meet our governor. I've met some other local politicians to talk about, one was on women in the workplace and issues that small businesses are facing here in Colorado. So access to programming like that, where a business can listen and contribute, is a great part of being part of Good Business Colorado. Sorry. Other things are, being connected to other members. They're, simply knowing that you're not alone is oftentimes important in small business, and especially in kind of mission-driven or passion-driven business, where you get your head down and you're doing what you do, and you sometimes feel like you're alone in this world doing something. And really, there are a lot of other great people and products and organizations around you. So I think having access to those members is great. And then the work that they're doing in addition to supporting the companies. So the legislative work, I spoke with Deborah this week about a Family Medical Leave Act that's on the table in our local government that could potentially benefit contract workers. So a company like SaraBella and or our team members could have leave opportunities, paid leave, if they have medical or health issues. So I think being connected to all of that is really what Good Business Colorado is about, and how it's benefited SaraBella in our experience.
Well, and what I'm also hearing you say is, especially as a purpose-driven company, there's lots of different ways that you can do good. And sometimes standing for some policy changes that actually would not just do good for your company, but for a whole lot of other small businesses, whether they're purpose-driven or not, and adding your voice to that, that's an important contribution that you can make, and know what's going on, so you can take advantage of some of that.
And be an informed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Advocate. Yep.
We're wrapping down on time here. Are there any last minute words of wisdom or food for thought you'd like to offer to people that are thinking about doing their own purpose-driven business as we're ending?
Gosh, I mean, I think in today's context, and I think for me personally, recognizing my privileges and like I said earlier, my responsibilities, with a mindset of we are doing what we're doing right now, and we continue to learn and try to do better. So in today's context, in particular with equity inclusion, what else can we do at SaraBella and in the broader fly fishing industry to make this sport more accessible, to bring more people to the water and continue to make that impact? So I think, well, not beating yourself up, but recognizing to not ever be fully satisfied with where you are, to keep growing, keep questioning, keep learning, and at the end of the day, keep doing your best, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great guidance, because times change, and how do you make sure that you really are living your values through the company? We did it like this 5 years ago, so we need to stick with it. It's like, no, okay, how do we challenge ourselves to be more inclusive, or some of the other things you mentioned? So I think those are great words of wisdom. Thanks for sharing those.
Keep on, don't give up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, April, for making time to share the SaraBella story with us. I've enjoyed learning more about what you're about. And I'm sure everybody listening, whether it's live or on the recording, also got some ideas about courage and sticking to it, and how do you, the different ways that you can weave good in to your business. So thank you for being transparent and sharing like what you're up to.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And if anybody has any questions, I'll give a pitch. If you do have any, please put them in chat. We have a couple seconds. We could answer a question, but I'm not seeing anything coming, which is no on you, April.
And everyone can contact us by going to sarabellafishing.com. We have a contact us page. You can reach out anytime. We're on the social media platforms, and we're glad to continue the conversation.
Great. Well, thanks, April. Really appreciate you being here, and have a good weekend, and everybody else have a good weekend. If I want to just remind you as we're exiting, we do have the Facebook group. So if you want to go there and share some of your ahas from what April was sharing, or ask questions, if she stimulated some thinking that you want to like see what other people are thinking about that same thing, please feel free to do that. So bye-bye for now, and thanks again.